Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from the Child Protection Party. I'm here again to talk to you about another story which has come to our attention today through the Daily, through In Daily, and it is something that we need to talk about, and we as the public need to make a stand against the type of decisions that the department make which impact families and children. Now, I've talked about issues like this for over a decade now, it seems, but this is one of those stories which keep arising and which I'd like to raise in terms of how it is that we're confronting some of these issues and the fact that these are issues which impact our kids, the kids that are in care. How do parents know that if their kids are in care that they're being cared for appropriately? Well, we know that they're not. We know that many children are abused while in care, and in particular, in this particular case I'm going to talk about in a moment, it is evident that the department doesn't know what the children are doing, that they don't have any control over what happens with a lot of these kids. And the reality is that many of these kids would be better off with their biological parents. The fact that the department seem to think that they are the arbiters of all things that are parenting, and that they seem to be able to have all the answers in relation to the issues that face kids is just completely crap. And this is another example where the department has failed again the children who are in their care. And this is a particular story that is in the In Daily, and this is about pregnant girls. So they say less than 5 pregnant girls in state care, says the Child Protection boss. Now, the circumstances on which these kids find themselves in state care could vary, and this article goes on to talk about it. There could be they could have been impregnated by someone in the family. That's the reason why the kids have been removed and so on. But I doubt whether that's the case. The fact that the department refuses to acknowledge how these kids become pregnant, where they, who was involved in the pregnancy, and what circumstances surround these kids, even to the point whereby we don't even know how old they are. I mean, there's a case a couple of years ago where a 13-year-old kid became pregnant while in state care. Now, I'll just read a bit of the article to you, and then we can talk about it, I guess, as we go along. Taylor, who will resign as Chief Executive of the Department of Child Protection, it's happening far too late in our opinion, told Parliamentary Budget she should have resigned. As soon as she chose to leave, she should just have left that up to Fiona Ward to look after the place in the meantime. So Budget and Finance Committee this morning that the department was supporting the pregnant girls through a specialist service. Now, I don't know what that specialist service is specifically. They could have at least told us, I guess, what that is and what happens within that specialist service. She and her Deputy Chief Executive, Fiona Ward, were unable to say exactly how many girls were pregnant, how old they were, or whether they would have custody of their babies. Now, I can assure you, right at this very minute, that they won't have custody of these kids. Now, I know because I've been working with a number of families where kids of a family have been in care, but the mother is now pregnant again. Good relationship in this particular case that I'm thinking of now, but the department are involved, and the department will refuse to say whether or not the child is going to be removed at birth. Now, that's the treatment that they give a mother who is who's dealt with all her issues, got her all out together, and they make it really difficult for her. They cannot make a decision. So when it comes to a child that has become pregnant while in care, there is little to no chance that that mother of that child will ever have access or appropriate access to that kid. That kid will go straight into foster care, and that'll probably be the last time that the mother will ever get to see that child, or at least on irregular basis. So we know that that's what they do, and that they're unable to articulate clearly to us what that procedure will be is so typical of the department, who cannot make a decision, an appropriate decision, and inform the community as to what they're doing. That's just the way they are. She and her deputy chief executive ward were unable to say exactly how many girls, right? But somehow we know that there were 5. Don't know how we know that. There have been other instances of children and young people becoming pregnant. Okay, so it happens. I get all of that. But these kids are supposed to be in your care, Kathy. You're the one responsible for them. Why aren't you? Why don't you have a team of thousands of people that are supposed to be responsible for these kids, but you can't do it. You just can't do it, and it's about time you leave. It comes as Taylor in 2020 was criticised for not being aware that a 13-year-old girl in state care has fallen pregnant to a pedophile until a journalist asked the department to respond to the court sentencing remarks, which were made public. I think that was Lauren Novak, and really appreciate that, Lauren. Another case emerged later that year when a second 13-year-old girl in state care was found to be living with another pedophile for 2 months while she was pregnant with it from a different man. So what are these kids doing, wandering the streets in the way that they are, shacking up with these undesirables, and then the department just stepping back and saying, well, it just so happens that she got pregnant. The circumstances under which these kids were living, who they were living with, was abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent. But clearly the department didn't have the power, the nous, the intelligence, whatever it is, to be able to ensure that those kids were safe. Both cases prompted the Marshall government to commission a review by retired Judge Paul Rice, who described the department's reporting of abuse as a mess. Their own ability to be able to work through the issues that are created by them under their watch is hopeless, absolutely hopeless. Under questioning by SA Best Frank Pangalo this morning, Taylor and Ward refused to provide details about how the girls and their children were now faring. So for some particular reason, it doesn't matter now that we as the public who are concerned about the well-being of these kids get any information about them at all. There's this shroud of secrecy over all of these issues. There's a shroud of secrecy over trying to work out whether the department is okay about a young mum when she delivers the baby is able to keep that baby or not. And even older parents who are now delivering kids, whose kids have been in care, don't have the good grace of the department to be able to tell them that it's okay, you're going to be able to keep your kids. They keep them in suspense until the very last moment, and then they dive in and they remove those children. And here we have these kids that are actually under the care of the department, and what's going to happen to their kids? Well, frankly, they're just going to be removed. The 2 young women, who obviously were the focus of commentary a couple of years ago, they raised with us concerns that they were being identified not by their name, but because of the individual circumstances. So here is the justification for not telling everybody, because Kathy Taylor believes that once this information comes out, we figure out who the kids are. I never knew who those kids were, even though I think I knew who one of them was perhaps, but that was because I was working with one of the parents. But the issue is that the public don't generally know. So they're not going to make an issue of being able to identify them in any way whatsoever. But that's not what we're asking. We're simply asking that you find a way to tell us how these kids are going, what organisation is working with them, what processes are in place, are the kids safe, how are they mentally coping with the fact that they're an underage child with a kid and they're likely to lose that kid. Do they actually want to have the kid? They want to maintain the kid? What is their family like? Is their family able to support them as they're going through all of this? Are the kids likely to be returned back to their biological family so they can have the appropriate support? Or are they going to be kept in residential care or in foster care and not get the support that they particularly require? So there are many questions that occur to me in terms of what's going to be happen. So the committee chief asked Taylor whether she would prefer to provide evidence in camera to answer some of these questions, that is, behind closed doors. I think even in camera, we wouldn't go into the personal circumstances of the 2 young women. So even behind closed doors in a room where it's, extremely, you're not going to be able to tell anybody else because no one else is going to know, she wouldn't even do that. If we work with mums-to-be and their... This is the thing that really gets me. If we can work with mums-to-be and their families prior to giving birth, then we can actually achieve better outcomes for children and young people. That is so much bullshit, seriously, because they have a department that looks after children. They look after families if they're fearful that a child is like to be born into a dysfunctional family or be abused or whatever because of the history of the parents. But they don't specifically work with the family. They do an investigation. They don't have a degree of people, a certain number of people who sit around and who ask the parent about their parenting skills and all the other things and how they're dealing with life in general. And they're not interested in that. They're just interested in looking at all the previous information that they've had and diagnosing these parents as a bad parent, even though the circumstances may have changed incredibly, and that they'll be the parent they need to be. Now, what sort of work are they doing with these young kids under these circumstances? We do not know. And they're certainly not going to tell us. For some people, they are 17 and their partners are 17. So here's the justification stuff. So this for some people. This isn't necessarily the case with regard to any of these children at all, and particularly those two 13-year-olds I just talked about earlier. What we do is assess every case. I hate this shit. We assess every case on its merit. Well, that's not the point. The point is that the way you do go about your assessing needs to be evaluated, because often the decisions that you make as a result of your assessing are simply wrong, inappropriate, and I would argue in many cases not good social work practice. What we do is assess every case on its merits and understand about what the capacity is of the young person at the heart of what we're talking about, the soon-to-be parent, their capacity to safely care for a child. Now, I can pretty much assure you that any parent, young parent, who's been in care will be, particularly a really young parent, is unlikely to have that child returned to them or for them to keep that child. That just does not happen. So to make out that it does, because they assess every case on its merit, one of the negatives, which is about their merit, is simply the fact that they themselves were in care, or that there was a drug problem, or there was DV in many cases, whatever it is. That's the merit test that they go by. They don't look into the future and think, well, potentially this could be a really good parent. We could work with this parent. So, to what extent have they made a decision about working with these young women so that they can keep their kids into the future? Are they prepared to invest in these young women so that these young women can do that? Doubt it. No. The expedient process is to simply remove the children. So I'd be interested to know what you think, what concerns you might have in relation to any of these issues, and whether or not you've got experiences that need to be noted in terms of what is happening here for these kids. And I'd just like to suggest, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, could you please subscribe, ring the bell? We're trying to kick up the numbers as best as we can. And also on our Facebook page, folks, we have got a program that we're just launching called the Real Program. Can you click on that on our Facebook page and have a look at the video that I've done in relation to that? It's a really important program, and it's something which is going to help us all to be able to confront the department a little differently. If you wish to contact me or Avery, you can contact us at the email address below. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with me. Be interested to hear your comments about these kids that it has just been revealed have become pregnant. What do you think about that situation? And what do you think needs to be done about it? Please let me know. And can I just say to everybody, look, just make sure that you look after yourself and that you look after your kids and that you simply be safe.